This is Singapore, a glittering metropolis, a global financial hub, and home to one of the busiest ports on the planet. It's a nation with a GDP per capita that consistently ranks among the top 5 globally, a city of the future, a symbol of impossible economic success. But this was never a sure thing. Less than a lifetime ago, this exact same place was a tiny, impoverished island. It had zero natural resources, a population crammed into slums, and was staring into a deeply uncertain future after being unwillingly kicked out of its own country. So how did a nation smaller than most cities, with nothing but a strategic patch of sea and the sheer will to survive, become one of the wealthiest on Earth? How did it leap from the third world to the first in a single generation? This is the story of the pillars of Singapore's economic miracle, the unlikely nation. To really get Singapore's incredible rise, you have to go back to August 9th, 1965. This was the day Singapore became a country, but it wasn't a celebration. It was a day of absolute panic. Just 2 years earlier, Singapore had joined Malaysia, believing its only hope for survival was to be part of something bigger. But political and ethnic tensions exploded. The Malaysian parliament, fearing Singapore's growing political influence, voted to expel it. The founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew had to announce the separation on live television. His voice choked with emotion, but he wasn't crying tears of joy. He was crying because the one path he thought would lead to survival had just been completely cut off. Singapore was utterly, terrifyingly on its own. The challenges were almost comical. Imagine a brand new country, a tiny dot on the map, suddenly left to fend for itself. It had no oil, no timber, no minerals, nothing to sell. Its only real asset was a deep-water harbor left over from the colonial era. Its people were a fractured mix of immigrants, and racial tensions had recently boiled over into violent riots. A third of the population lived in squalid slums. Unemployment was over 10%. To make matters worse, the British were pulling their military out, which at the time made up a staggering 20% of Singapore's entire economy. The nation was surrounded by larger, unstable neighbors, had no army, and no hinterland for food or water. By every normal measure, Singapore was a failed state waiting to happen. The question wasn't if it would fail, but when. The Founding Fathers' vision. Facing an existential crisis, Singapore's future came to be defined by the iron will of one man, Lee Kuan Yew. A brilliant Cambridge-educated lawyer, he was now the leader of a country he never wanted. He knew that just surviving would require a completely radical approach. Lee Kuan Yew was not an idealist, he was a supreme realist. He saw the world as a brutal, competitive arena where nations only succeeded if they were useful. He famously said, "Even from my sickbed, even if you are going to lower me into the grave and I feel that something is going wrong, I will get up." That's the intensity that defined his leadership. His vision was brutally simple. If Singapore has nothing inside, it must make itself indispensable to the outside world. Ideology was a luxury they couldn't afford. It didn't matter if a policy was left-wing or right-wing. The only question was, does it work? This ruthless pragmatism became Singapore's guiding principle. Lee and his team made a series of audacious bets. They decided to leapfrog the region and connect directly with the developed world, America, Europe, and Japan. They would turn their tiny island into a beacon of stability and efficiency in a region full of conflict. They had only 2 assets, their people and their location. Every single policy that followed was designed to maximize them. The plan was to be smarter, work harder, and be more disciplined than anyone else. They were going to build a first-world oasis in a third-world region. It was an impossibly ambitious goal that meant transforming not just the economy, but the entire mindset of a nation. Pillar 1. The geographic jackpot. Singapore's first and most lasting advantage is one it didn't build: its location. Look at a map, and you'll see Singapore sits at the mouth of the Malacca Strait, the narrow channel connecting the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. This is one of the most critical choke points in global trade. It's the shortest sea route between the Middle East, which has the energy, and East Asia, which has the factories. Roughly a third of all global maritime trade passes through this strait every year. Any ship sailing from Europe to China or from India to Japan has to pass right by Singapore's front door. The British recognized this back in 1819, but it was Lee Kuan Yew's government that weaponized this location for the modern age. They knew being a stop along the way wasn't enough. They had to become the destination. So the government invested massively to build the world's most efficient port. Where other ports took days to turn a ship around, Singapore could do it in hours. This obsession with efficiency made it the world's busiest transshipment hub. In 2024, the port handled a record-breaking volume of over 40 million shipping containers, and vessel arrivals reached over 3 billion gross tons. It isn't just the biggest, it's the smartest, using incredible levels of automation and logistics. This hub strategy extended to the skies. The government built Changi Airport not just as a gate to Singapore, but as a global transit hub. With incredible service and efficiency, Changi became a destination in its own right, consistently voted the world's best airport. In 2024, it handled 67.7 million passengers, connecting them to every corner of the globe. By mastering sea and air, Singapore became the ultimate connector, a stable, reliable bridge between Asia and the world. Pillar 2, the global magnet for money. Having a great location is one thing, but getting the world to actually use it is another. Singapore's leaders knew they couldn't compete on size, so they decided to compete on policy. They rolled out the red carpet for foreign companies with a simple, irresistible pitch. Come here, and we will make it the easiest, safest, and most profitable place to do business in Asia. This strategy was built on 3 ideas: low taxes, zero corruption, and no red tape. First, the taxes. Singapore welcomed foreign companies with attractive tax rates, establishing a corporate rate of just 17%, with incentives that could lower it even more. For companies trying to expand into the chaotic Asian market, this was a huge lure. Second, and maybe even more important, was the war on corruption. In the 1960s, corruption was just a part of doing business in the region. Lee Kuan Yew saw it as a cancer. He gave the Anti-Corruption Bureau immense power to investigate anyone, no matter how powerful. High-ranking officials were prosecuted and jailed, sending a clear message: Singapore is clean. For businesses, this meant contracts were honored and rules were applied fairly. That trust was worth more than any tax break, and Singapore is still ranked as one of the least corrupt countries on earth. Third, they made doing business ridiculously easy. The government streamlined everything through the Economic Development Board, EDB. The EDB didn't just wait for companies to arrive, they went to boardrooms in America and Europe to sell the Singapore story. They asked companies what they needed and then they built it, whether it was a specific type of factory, a training program, or a new regulation. The results were astounding. By 2023, Singapore was home to the regional headquarters of 4,200 multinational firms. Companies like Microsoft, Google, and Rolls-Royce all made Singapore their base for the Asia-Pacific. This flood of foreign capital brought money, technology, and most importantly, jobs. Pillar 3, building the human engine. Attracting the world's biggest companies was only half the battle. Those companies needed skilled workers, and in the 1960s, Singapore's labor force was largely uneducated. Lee Kuan Yew knew that people were Singapore's only true natural resource, and the government launched a national obsession with education. The strategy was incredibly pragmatic. The education system wasn't just about general knowledge, it was about producing the exact skills the economy needed. When factories needed textile workers, vocational schools trained them. When the economy shifted to electronics, the focus moved to engineering. English was made the language of business in school. This was a controversial but brilliant move. It instantly plugged Singapore into the global economy and made it easy for expats to live and work there. Citizens still learned their mother tongues, Mandarin, Malay, or Tamil, to preserve their heritage, but English became the common language that opened Singapore to the world. The government poured money into schools and universities. They sent the brightest students overseas to the best universities in the world, on the condition that they come back and work in public service. This created a cycle where the government was always staffed by some of the most talented people in the country. This relentless focus on human capital allowed Singapore to climb the economic ladder at breathtaking speed, moving from cheap manufacturing to high-value sectors like biotech and aerospace engineering. By investing in its people, Singapore turned its population from a liability into its greatest asset. Pillar 4, an oasis of stability. For a corporation deciding where to invest billions, it's not just about taxes, it's about predictability. In a region known for political unrest, Singapore crafted an image of itself as an unwavering oasis of stability. This was enforced through two main channels: absolute political control and very strict laws. Since independence, Singapore has been run by a single party, the People's Action Party, PAP. This created unparalleled predictability for investors. They knew the pro-business policies of today would still be there tomorrow. The second channel was law and order. Singapore became famous for its strict rules and harsh penalties for everything from littering to chewing gum. But the clearest example is its zero-tolerance policy on drug trafficking, which includes a mandatory death penalty. This policy, while controversial, is credited internally with keeping the country exceptionally safe. This tough-on-crime approach created one of the safest societies on Earth. For companies and the highly paid expats they wanted to attract, this was a massive selling point. They could build their headquarters and raise their families in a city free from the crime that plagues other major urban centers. This commitment to stability also included a powerful military. Despite its size, Singapore built one of the most advanced armed forces in the region, funded by a significant chunk of the national budget and based on mandatory military service for all male citizens. This powerful deterrent ensured Singapore could protect itself and its vital shipping lanes, giving investors one more reason to feel secure. Pillar 5, a roof over every head. An often overlooked pillar of Singapore's success is its unique approach to public housing. When the PAP took over, they inherited a city of slums. They knew economic growth was meaningless if most people were left in squalor, which would only breed social unrest. Their answer was the Housing and Development Board, or HDB. The HDB started building high-quality, affordable apartments at a scale the world had never seen. Within a decade, the housing crisis was over. Today, over 80% of Singaporeans live in HDB flats, and about 90% of them own their homes. This wasn't just social policy, it was brilliant economic strategy. By giving citizens a tangible asset, a home they owned, it gave them a direct stake in the country's success. The value of your home was tied to the nation's stability. This fostered a deep sense of ownership and a vested interest in keeping things running smoothly. It also prevented the formation of the massive slums that surround so many other fast-growing cities. By mixing different ethnic and income groups in the same buildings, the HDB policy also became a powerful tool for social harmony, forcing people from different backgrounds to live side by side as neighbors. The price of paradise? There's no denying Singapore's success. In the 2025 Index of Economic Freedom, Singapore's economy was ranked as the freest in the world. Its GDP per capita is among the highest on the planet, and its citizens enjoy an incredible standard of living. But this success has come with trade-offs. The same political dominance that provides stability is seen by critics as a limit on political freedom. The government keeps tight control over the media, and laws restricting free speech are stringent. The cost of living has skyrocketed, making Singapore one of the most expensive cities on Earth. The intense focus on growth has created a high-pressure, ultra-competitive society, and the reliance on foreign talent for high-skilled jobs sometimes creates tension with the local population. These are the complex compromises Singapore has made on its journey. So, what do you think? Is Singapore's model a blueprint for success? Or is the price for its economic miracle too high? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. The story of Singapore is about turning weaknesses into strengths, being small with no resources forced to focus on people and the outside world. Its dangerous neighborhood forced an obsession with stability and order. From a colonial port in a malarial swamp, it was forged into a global metropolis through sheer force of will. The Singaporean model is a unique mix of geographic luck, ruthless pragmatism, free market capitalism, and strict social control. It's proof that a nation's destiny isn't determined by its size or what it has on the ground, but by the choices it makes. In a world full of uncertainty, the little red dot continues to shine as a symbol of what's possible when a nation simply refuses to fail.